this is the last chance Duncan Robinson has to salvage this season. The most comfortable thing that he does is the dribble handoff with Bam Adebayo. And I'm hoping that the return of Bam Adebayo spearheads, injects life into whatever cliche phrase you want to put against it. I hope that it makes Duncan Robinson save his season, because I don't know of any other thing, like any other lever we can pull or point to, or position he could be put in, or lineup switch that could be made, or combo of players that would work. The dribble handoff, we wanted to see less of it. We wanted to see them rely on it less. They have. How about let's go back to it and hope that Duncan regains form? That's what I'm looking for.
Brady, do you see that happening? And I ask this because one of the things that we brought up last year was that Erik Spoelstra became too reliant upon this. And one of my frustrations, and it's going to get into what we talk about with what I want to see, is that it became about Bam getting Duncan open instead of about Duncan freeing Bam. Right. Like, and I understand there's a little of both that plays into it and Duncan's gravity, but it seemed like Bam, and I'm trying not to give away too much here, but it did seem like Bam took it as his primary duty on the court offensively was to get Duncan Robinson shots. Okay. Which is a noble goal when you have an elite 3-point shooter, but it ultimately does not give you the ceiling, as we like to speak of, that you want when you have a max player who is basically deferring to a 3-point specialist. Do you see that changing? I'm going to talk about mindset. I think everybody knows where I'm going here. But just from Spoelstra's perspective and from a scheme perspective, do you think we're going to see the heavy dose of dribble handoffs with Bam and Duncan that we saw before?
Well, I do want to say first, to Greg's point, this is Duncan's major opportunity, and I think there's a couple of reasons why. The main thing is Bam Adebayo returning. The other thing is Kyle Lowry being out. And I think the reason that's important is he can be the base of an offense, and he can be the main dribble handoff guy again. And I feel like the reason, not that Kyle and Duncan is not a good pairing, it's because they actually don't have a point guard right now, a true point guard in Kyle Lowry, that they can actually make that the main thing and continue to go in that route. And it's the reason why it was so effective last season when they did not have a true point guard. So I think that is where an opportunity rises. I do think they probably do stick with Strus just because it just feels like the way they're going to go. But it would not shock me if they do go to Duncan, not just because of the Bam thing, but also because of the Kyle thing. But talking about this schematic specifically, you mentioned that it was more about Duncan trying to free Bam after that. I think at this point, it was kind of Duncan was the hot guy and they were trying to get Bam going. I think this is a switch of roles a little bit. Like, this feels like now it's going to be Bam trying to figure out ways to get Duncan going. We know what Bam is at this point. He's going to try to go up slowly and try to work his way in. But it feels like working your way in is the perfect way to kind of start it out, is by running handoffs, by being the simple role guy, by setting screens. That just seems like the perfect role. They're going to stagger things anyway, especially, by the way, without Kyle. Bam and Jimmy are going to be staggered. So even if Duncan doesn't start, they'll probably work it out that Duncan and Bam are probably on the floor most of the time that Duncan's out there. But I do think we're going to see a lot of that. I think going back a little bit to the scheme, with Omer has been doing a lot of stuff on the strong side and playmaking to the weak side. They put 4 guys on the weak side. It always leads to an open cutter. And I've been talking about that, how it's been Omer kind of just making the easy read. In the video I posted earlier was a lot of Bam doing the same thing, but it was always him making the complex read where it wasn't the open cutter. It was him waiting for the guy to drop down, and then he hits the skip pass to the opposite corner. That guy most of the time will probably be Duncan Robinson. They're going to send guys like Tyler and guys like Strus or guys like Gabe inside the lane for cuts, and that's going to be where he excels. So I think this is a perfect opportunity. I don't know if he's going to start it. I don't think it really matters. I think he just has to find a way to get going. But Bam is the perfect piece to do that. And I feel like that is going to be coming into this game. I feel like they're going to come in and say, let's get Duncan Robinson going at some point. Like, we're going to go through a point. This last game, I felt like there were points in the game where I didn't even notice Duncan was on the floor. Like, 0 for 8 is not a big deal. Like, getting the shots up, I'm still okay with it. Like, that is not a big deal whatsoever when you're that type of shooter. But you can't go through points where you're not touching the ball from 3 possessions in a row. That's where the issue is. And when Bam returns, there's not going to be points in the game where Duncan doesn't touch the ball for 3 possessions straight.
Do we all, before we move on to mine, do we all think Gabe starts?
Yeah, tomorrow night, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Who
the hell else is going to guard at FVV?
True.
And by the way, I do want to say, I put it earlier, if the starting lineup that we would expect with Gabe, Vincent, Strus, Jimmy, PJ, and Bam, They played 1 minute together this season, so that'll be the starting lineup tomorrow.
It'd be something if he started Omer and brought Bam off the bench. I mean, I don't think he's going to do that, but that has been the pattern here, right? With the exception of Jimmy. So I guess it's
even Zoe came off the
also.
bench when he came back.
Right. I mean,
I'm taking him way back. I'm sure.
No, way back, but yeah, I mean, it wouldn't stun me if he did that. I don't think he will. I think it'll be Bam, but he has done this thing where he's waited a couple of games to get somebody back in lineup. I'll just say this, okay? I get what you're saying about how the default position here is for Bam to try to get Duncan shots, and I'm of the mind that Duncan should probably start to give him this last opportunity with Bam. But I can tell you that if that's the direction that this goes, and Duncan doesn't make shots, and Bam is not aggressive as a result of this, fire to the timeline, okay? I mean, it is going to be, I mean, that is the worst case scenario here, because then it becomes, what are you doing? Like, I mean, seriously, like, you've got your max guy who's coming back. How much focus can be on someone who's been in his own head the whole season on getting him back? I don't think they stay with that long. I think this is going to be a short period of time to Duncan to show that he fits better with Bam and Jimmy, and that he can become part of that core again of the starting lineup. But I don't think that this is like a 3-week experiment. I think this is a week or two at the most.
3 game.
Against some weaker competition. And you kind of see, although Toronto's not weaker competition right now, they're playing pretty well. Actually, that was one of the picks I got right before the season. I thought they'd be a plus 500 team, even after losing Lowry, and it looks like they're going to be.